March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, but activists say that there remains a large gap in care resources for some people. In the CBS Reports documentary, No Place Like Home, families and people with developmental disabilities share the challenges that they face.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
I love you.
And some families struggle to find resources that would help keep their loved ones at home.
Nobody could meet his needs.
I had to leave my job. My husband had to work 3 jobs.
Come on. I feel like my hands are being forced because I can't provide what he needs.
Oh, my goodness. CBS News Chicago anchor and reporter Dana Kozlov was a correspondent on this piece. And I have to tell you how moving just even watching that preview was. Talk to us about what you heard from these families and why they said it was so important to find housing in the community for their loved ones.
Right. Well, there's so many factors here, right? So many different stories, but that is the overarching point here is that so many families or parents who have disabled, intellectually or developmentally disabled loved ones, they want to try to keep them living in the community in maybe a small group home setting because, you know, that keeps them connected to the people they love. It keeps them connected to the places and the people that they may know and feel comfortable with. But you need the support to do that. And in so many cases, support overall is lacking. And the research, of course, backs it up. There is many studies that show that if you can keep disabled folks in the community, living in the community as opposed to an institution, it is better for their all-around quality of life, but it's a real struggle.
Yeah, and hearing that young girl saying how she felt being in the institution and the family wanting to have her there with them, it makes you wonder, what are those challenges, those struggles that people face when they are trying to find an alternative to institutional care?
Yeah, well, you know, it all comes down to support services, and the demand for those type of resources is really far outweighs the supply. I mean, for instance, in 2023, about 500,000 people were on Medicaid wait lists for those sorts of services. Right here in Illinois, that wait list is about 16,000 people. So that's a problem. You know, there's a dearth of these services and the funding for these services available. And also, there is a shortage of direct support professionals, also called DSPs in that world, who would, let's say, come to these homes or these community settings and work with and provide support and care to folks with these disabilities. There's a shortage because one of the biggest problems is low living wages, and it's certainly been a problem here in Illinois for many years.
And you mentioned you're there in Chicago and Illinois. What is that state doing to try and resolve some of these problems?
Well, our Governor J.B. Pritzker here in Illinois, he's really put a historic amount of funding towards into the system, if you will, to try to help alleviate some of these service and support concerns. But like in many states, the funding overall historically has been lacking. So in order to close that gap, it's going to take more than, let's say, funding increase for 2-3 years. It's going to take a lot more than that. And in the meantime, so many families are struggling, especially when it comes to keeping their loved ones out of an institutional setting, which of course has been the goal in this country now for 50 plus years, right, is to remove people with disabilities from institutional settings. So that's still a real struggle.
Such a spotlight that you are shining on a population that doesn't get enough attention. Dana, thank you.
Thank you.
And you can stream No Place Like Home anytime on the CBS News app. You can also catch it this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News.